suicide in the year of 2022, and that's according to the Department of Veteran Affairs. Now more than 50% higher than the civilian population, and a Brown University study found that since 9/11, more than 30,000 service members have died by suicide, over 4 times the approximately 7,000 killed in combat during that same period. Now these numbers underscore an urgent truth, and that support for our nation's heroes cannot be limited to a single day of gratitude. So joining me this morning is Ken Fisher to share some simple ways to support veterans and their families, not only on Veterans Day, which is coming up on November 11th, but each day of the year. So thank you so much for joining me here this morning.
Thanks for having me on.
Yes, of course. So Ken, why is it so important to support veterans and their families beyond just Veterans Day?
You know, you just gave some statistics that are really hard to believe and even harder to understand. The fact that these men and women are 4 times as likely to die by suicide than on the battlefield says something very, very important about what's happening today. And it means that, you know, we are not doing the kind of thing by these veterans that we should be doing. This is the one bipartisan issue. As divided as this nation is, if we can't agree on helping veterans and making sure that they have what they need and the tools that they need to transition to civilian society without taking their own lives, then there's something very wrong. Only 1% of this country serves, which means that 99% of us don't understand the sacrifices and the burdens that are being borne, not only by these men and women, but by their families as well. So, you know, November 11th is a great way to start, but we need to do a little bit more in terms of learning about issues, making sure that our public officials are doing what we elected them to do, making sure that the VA is funded, that there's mental health care professionals, enough of them to make a real difference in what's going on, and making sure that veterans have what they need, not only holistically, but on a grassroots level as well.
Absolutely, and I love what you said about just learning and educating yourself on different issues. I feel like that's really important. And speaking of just learning and becoming educated on certain issues, so you are the CEO of Fisher House Foundation. So why don't you tell us about that and your work with military families?
Well, Fisher House Foundation was founded in 1990 when it was brought to our attention that there was this basic yet underappreciated need, that families had no affordable place to stay while their loved one, either in uniform or a veteran, was being hospitalized. And so Fisher House builds comfort homes. Now over 100 houses around the world now, where these families can stay free of charge for as long as they need to. What it does is it removes the financial burden, obviously, but it also helps these families with their healing process, because these houses can be 12 rooms, 16 rooms, or as much as 20 rooms. But no matter how big the houses are, the families support each other. They share the joy of the good days, the sorrow of the bad. But the beauty part is they understand that they are not in this alone. And that is so important when you're coming from areas, you know, that are unfamiliar, or going to areas that are unfamiliar to you. You don't know the area well, you don't know what to expect, and you come into this Fisher House, and all of a sudden there are families that can help guide you and tell you what to expect, and you know what's next on, you know, in terms of going to the hospital and helping their veteran. So, you know, it's so important because families make sacrifices and bear burdens that the average American will never understand. Remember, 99% of us did not put the uniform on. I didn't wear the uniform. I grew up during the Vietnam era when veterans were treated so awfully and so terribly that, you know, they would been so happy to hear thank you for your service. But today we know that thank you for your service is nice, but it's not enough. We need to speak louder with our actions and not with our words.
Absolutely, and it's such an amazing thing that you guys do for everyone. And so just really seeing all of that is really inspirational, and I'm sure it's inspirational to everyone else watching as well to just really do more. So what are some ways that people can get involved, such as just communities and employers, and where can everyone go for more information?
Well, I think the important thing is to remember that, you know, veterans make great employees, that they come from, you know, a team atmosphere. They're leaders by, you know, just by definition. So they make great employees. So hire a veteran, support a veteran-owned business. On a grassroots level, make sure that if you know that a veteran is suffering in silence, and the families also are suffering, don't let it get to that point where we just added another number to these statistics. You know, make sure that these families are not statistics, that they're getting what we can give them on a grassroots level. So if you know of a veteran that's suffering, get them to come forward, make them aware that treatment is available, and get them to come forward. It's so vital. Learn more about Fisher House. You go to fisherhouse.org, and one of the things that you'll learn about us is that 94 cents on every donated dollar will go towards helping our veterans, our wounded veterans and their families, and supporting their families in their time of need. We've got other programs where you can volunteer, you can donate unused frequent flyer miles. So fisherhouse.org is the way to learn more about us, and I think the more you learn, the more you'll like us. But the most important thing I think that we can do is remember that sacrifices are being made, burdens are being borne on our behalf for the freedoms that we take for granted. And we have to make sure that veterans and what they've done and their families are honored 365 days a year, not just one day.
Absolutely. Well, Mr. Ken, thank you so much for joining me here this morning. It's such an important message that everyone can support veterans, not just on November 11th, but year round. And just I hope everyone really got to take something from this like I did. So once again, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And stick around.